Hey guys, welcome to the Powerful Man Show, where we help married businessmen save their marriages without having to talk about it, get unstuck, and gain clarity in their lives. As I like to say, life is too short for average. I'm your host, Doug Holt, with my co host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Now let's get this started. What's going on, brother?
I'm very well. Feel nice and fresh and clean, and
I
you
love
know,
it when you shower. It's great. Amelia must love
yeah,
it as well.
yeah,
It is October.
fresh. That fresh feeling,
Yep, absolutely. Tim's giving me a hard time, guys, because we have friends visiting, and I had a couple drinks late to the night, and I'm a little slower than normal this morning. But it happens. It happens. It happens. So it's what happens when you get older, Tim.
Yeah, yeah. You drink more. Drink more, recover less.
Recovered less, exactly. So, Tim, you had something you wanted to throw on the table today and have a discussion about.
Yeah. So obviously, you and I bounced a couple of oxes back. No, I had a meeting, didn't we, yesterday about this? Well, not about this, but it went towards this. And that's Divorce Day. It's kind of coming up. I say it's coming up. It is in the sense that it's right around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
and now's the time to be working on things for anyone that wants to avoid falling victim to it. And the reason why I say that is because for those of you listening that don't know, Divorce Day is actually a term coined by solicitors and lawyers. And it's the day of the year when they get the most submissions for divorces. And weirdly enough, I mean, I would never have thought this, but 80% of divorces, 80% of the submissions that they get for divorces are from women. And when I first heard that, I was shocked. You wasn't shocked by it. I was really shocked by it when I first heard that. And Divorce Day is the first Monday after the holiday season, the festive period, right? I think this year it falls on about the 4th of January or something. We looked it up yesterday.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah. And as we started to research this more last year, what became apparent was, especially in the US, you've got Thanksgiving, which rolls pretty swiftly into obviously December and the festivities starting with work parties and arrangements with family. And then obviously the Christmas period too, for those people that celebrate it. And what often happens during that 4 week period, let's say from Thanksgiving to Christmas, New Year, is the women obviously see that the men are really not there. They're not present. They're drinking more. They nudge, nudge, wink, wink. They're I'll stop teasing. They're drinking more. They're on the phone more. They're more short tempered, and they're spending a lot more time together. And they're not able to get along, even at the time of year when they're seeing everybody around them really enjoying family time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
often the guys then go into work or they'll sneak off into the other room and check their emails or, just work on a project. Almost some of them say it's because they feel kind of like a stranger in their own home at that time, right? They're so used to not being there that when they're there, sat around the table, celebrating, they just feel like a bit of a ghost. The kids run up to the mother or the grandparents. They kind of get ignored a little bit. And anyway, the reason why I wanted to bring this up today is, well, a couple of reasons. One, now is the time to be doing the work if you want to really avoid, like I say, falling victim to this. But two, yesterday, the enrollment team, the advisors, they spoke to, I think, three men who first spoke to us on average between 8 to 10 weeks ago. And they had another conversation scheduled with them, like I say, yesterday. And these guys have now been handed the divorce papers. Um, at which point, it's very difficult to pull it back from that point. And there's a question that we ask during the process on this phone call or this conversation. And there's multiple conversations that happen, right? As you know, Doug, you know the process. And one of the questions we always want to find out more about is, okay, what do you think might happen here if nothing changes? And most of the guys really deny the fact that a divorce is on the table. say, well, you know what, Tim, I think things could get really worse if they don't change. And I can see us really, I don't know, maybe doing a trial separation, or maybe, I'm not too sure. I don't think we'll get divorced. I just can't see us doing that. We love each other. I don't think she'd do it. I'm not going to do it. It's not who I am. I said that I'd be in this, for the long haul. I'm going to be in it for the long haul. But what I see happening with the men is they've buried their head in the sand, and they've almost become numb to the pain that's been building over the past several years, right? Kind of like the analogy of, if you put a frog in some boiling water and you turn it up a little bit, eventually it'll just boil to death. It won't jump out. Whereas if you just drop it in an actual pan that's already boiling, it'll leak back out, right? Um, and it's kind of that analogy that the guy, one of the things that serves the men so well in business is their ability to persevere and overcome obstacles and tolerate pain to a degree. When they then take that into their marriage, it actually hinders them, because they use that to kind of negate what's going on, right? And then, like I said, bury the head, and before you know it, you're going through the festive period. It's been another bad Christmas, but you don't expect to be handed the divorce papers come the beginning of the year. And for the women, most of them do it because it's like, right, let's just get the festivities out of the way. Let's just make sure we can be together this year as a family. And then I've got a whole year to figure things out, and we can figure things out for the kids for next Christmas. So I just start bringing it to the table because I think it's a very timely conversation to have. And especially given the men that we have conversations with the past couple of days, given the timing coming up. And obviously, you've always got some good insight to share.
Yeah, as I was listening to you talk about this, I'm glad you brought this to the table for a couple of reasons. But I think it was really interesting, Tim, is when we had the meeting yesterday, it wasn't just you and I, it was other people on the team. And one of the guys on the team said, oh my gosh, this is when things broke down for me, right? The same idea and he correlated the dates, right? Whoa, right around this is exactly when the other shoe dropped for me in my marriage. And the reason this is so important to talk about now, guys, if you're listening to this, when this is released or even later, is now's the time to take action, right? You don't want to be sitting there on January 4th or any day for that matter, but January 4th, and to find out that what you thought was okay, right? The marriage is okay, and we'll push through, and next month, next year, it'll get better. I think it's a story we often tell ourselves as men, especially. It's going to get better. I'm just going to wait this thing out. And then divorce day happens, right? And your divorce day might be different, but divorce day can happen. And this could be your second, third, fourth divorce. I don't know. But then it's already too late, as you were saying, Tim. And, when we look at this as men, what can we do, right? Is we want to take action and do a temperature check in our relationship. And I just actually did this with my wife this morning. We have friends visiting, and often because of what I do, the guy will come and talk to me. Sometimes the wife will come talk to me, pull me aside, talk about their relationship. And my wife, the same thing happens. And I was talking to my wife about it, what was going on, because we get up really early. So we have that connection time. And then I turned to her and I said, how are you doing? How are we doing for you? Like, what's going on? What's your biggest complaint, to anybody else about our relationship? And I think it's really interesting to get that temperature check, right? To really understand where you are in your relationship. And I remember way back in the day when I was, when my wife and I were first dating and first got married, there's times when things aren't going well that you don't want to get a temperature check, right? You don't want to, you don't want to know, or you're so upset or angry or mad that you don't want to have that conversation. And I think the lesson that I've learned is you want to have that temperature check sooner than later and take massive action.
Yeah, for sure. The amount of guys that we've spoken to, Doug, that it's such a heart-wrenching conversation to have with the men.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to pull it back from that place. And they're saying things like, do you know what? She's my best friend. I've done all this for us. I've built this life because I wanted to enjoy it with her.
Yeah.
It means nothing if she's not by my side. I'd give it all up tomorrow to have her back. And it's just like, oh my God, then they started to go down the path of, if only I would have just listened to her. Because often the women have dropped little clues along the way. Hey,
Sure.
this isn't working for me. Why are you not doing that? Why are you doing this? And as guys, it's so easy because, in my opinion, anyway, it's so easy because of how we show up in business, and we're so used to just smashing through problems that often can seem bigger than the problems in the relationship. That when we then come home and we greeted with a little problem, or what seems like a little problem of, hey, you've not done the dishes again. You said you were going to do them, and we're like, do you not just understand? I've just crushed it in business. Why are you losing it over the dishes? Why does it matter? We can hire somebody to do the dishes. And in that moment, it's got nothing to do with the dishes, but it's the fact that she can't trust your word.
Hmm.
Not being a man of your word to her. And is that anyway, we don't need to, that could be a whole of the podcast, right? But you get the gist as all this starts to happen. And it's crucial, like you were saying, to take massive action.
Well, yeah, you want to take massive action, and your woman wants to see you taking massive action, right? She wants to see you making an effort to make a change, right? Our words are one thing, actions are something totally different. And it can be a lot of things that you can do, right? A lot of the men, it's like one of the first things they talk about when they join the program is when they're going through the activation method anyway, is they talk about, wow, my wife knew I was serious when I started doing this. And then, of
Hmm.
course, he starts changing, she starts changing, and then there's a whole cascade effect, right? Which is really, really brilliant. And it doesn't just stop there, right? I'm like I said, I've been doing this work for a long time, and this morning I'm doing a temperature check, right? I'm checking in to see for my wife how not only how things are for her, but how things are for our relationship for her, right? And not from a point of trying to solve it, for her. That, the guys, is super important, right? She gave me kind of her complaints or things that she thought could be better. I didn't immediately I did in my head, right? But I didn't go to try to solve them with her. I just went through validation, a lot of the texts, the clean slate method, and the live like a king system. I used a lot of the techniques that we use in there during that conversation. And I think that's incredibly important. It's just like doing construction, right? I'm here at my house. I built a new wall down here, put laid flooring. We did a lot of construction here. And the more tools you have in your tool belt, the easier that process is, right? It's much easier to get things done. You know which tool to use. If you have a miter saw versus a skill saw versus a table saw, you know what you're doing. If you have all those tools in your tool belt, you can pull them out and be much, much more efficient. And that's when
Mm.
we talk about divorce day, Tim. I think a lot of guys, we just haven't been given the tools. And I was talking about that last night is most men, you haven't been given the tools on how to have a healthy marriage as a modern day man. Who's taught you? Probably no one sat down and taught you, right? If anything, you've emulated your parents.
I agree. And I struggle to buy that right now. And the reason why I struggle to buy it, not about emulating parents, I agree about that. But what I mean is about not having tools, right? Because I don't think men today can use that excuse. Because look at the tools we give out. Look at what's available on YouTube. Look at what's available online. I get maybe being overwhelmed with tools, but I really believe that if the guys listening to this really want to make a change, I get that it can be scary, and they've got. And this is maybe even what the wife is thinking too, right? You're listening to this podcast. They see them digesting information. They see them listening to things or reading things or watching things, but then no action with it. And it's kind of worse than not even doing anything, not even being in the conversation in the first place.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. When I was talking about is like you go to school, right? You go to school, you learn, at least I did, you're learning geometry, you're learning history, you're learning all of these things. Where is relationships taught? Where is,
Uh,
a lot of these things taught? There's this, no one's taught that to you. Do you have resources that you can do? Absolutely. Men listening to this podcast and the show, whether it be on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, wherever you are, they're way ahead of the curve, right? You guys listening to this, you are the 1% out there because you're trying to better yourself. But I also agree with you though, Tim, that if you're not taking action, you're just digesting content. We call that educational masturbation, right? You're getting off with this idea of change and you're not actually, stepping to the line and actually doing the work that's necessary. And that's the hard part, right? I was talking to one of the guys in the inner circle, and that's our highest end mastermind group where men make a significant investment in time and resources and money, and they get access to our top coaches, right? And he sent me a message, just needed to chat. And we were talking about that idea of actually taking action and stepping to the line. And the point we were talking about was courage, right? And courage, you don't have courage when you're not afraid. Courage by definition is you're afraid, you have fear, yet you do it anyway. That's courage. That's courageousness. And a lot of people have these lions and courage posters all over their office and what have you. But courage is stepping into fear, stepping into the unknown, right? And doing it anyway. And that could be taking action on something you hear on this podcast, in a book, or taking action, joining the activation method, or joining the brotherhood or the inner circle or something along those lines. Because it's scary, right? What's going to happen? I'm going to make an investment, and my investment in time. Am I going to change? What's going to happen here? And so it takes courage to take action, guys. And that's, again, stepping into the fear. And doing a temperature check in your relationship can take courage, right? Because you may not like what you hear. You may not like it, but maybe it's the truth, right? Maybe it's the truth you need to hear. It's the truth probably for the person you're talking to. And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, I just think back, start of the conversation when you said the people involved in the conversation yesterday on the team. When I think across the team, Chris, one of the advisors, he got handed divorce papers on divorce day. And when I told him about this, he was like, "Oh my God, that's it." Ryan reached out to us and came to us on or around that time. It was during the holiday season. And many other men have done too. And I think what you said there, the temperature check is super important. And I think as well, the caveat here is if your wife has been telling you what's wrong for a long time, maybe a temperature check might not be a good idea, because she might say, "Hey, have you not been listening to me for the past 2 years whilst I've shared how I'm feeling?" Yeah, no. So anyway, guys, the reason for this podcast isn't to scare you into doing something. It's really to just inform you that, hey, there's this date that exists. It's on the horizon. Now is the time. Now might be the time for you to actually start taking some risks, start taking some action, exercise your courage, because over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, leading up to Thanksgiving in the US, leading up to the busier holiday season in the UK, you could really start to gain some traction here. And it's not about becoming a new man or having to change every single way you do everything. It's not about that. You could start to, even if it's the hidden motives technique from the Facebook group or clean slate method, maybe, but usually that works better after you've done a couple of the other things first. But the clean slate method, live as a king system, even if you just start there, wouldn't it be great to go into the holiday season knowing that you've got that connection with your wife?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Being able to relax instead of feeling like a stranger at home over the holiday season, instead feeling like your home's a sanctuary, like you're a king, quite frankly. You get looked at in the way that only a king can be looked at, admiration, respect, affection. Might sound a bit, I don't know, might sound a bit unrealistic, but that's the way a lot of the guys describe it to us. So there's one thing from this, Doug, I would say, I'd say it's take action. I was going to say it's a temperature check. I don't think it is. I think take some action, whether it's the hidden motives, live as a king, or if you feel like you've got some good connection there, then do the temperature check. I think if you go straight in for the temperature check, you could get a slap.
Yeah. I didn't know we were going to have this conversation today, but I would say if I was in that situation where I was like, oh crap, divorce day might be in my relationship and I wanted to still be married, right? And I asked the guy this yesterday. It's a yes, no. No story. Well, if she does this or what, do you want to be still married? Yes, no. Yes, no. No story, just yes or no. If the answer is yes, then what I would do is enroll in the activation method or something similar across the board. Get something where you're going to get coaching, you're going to get guidance, you're going to get accountability, and you're going to push the limits because now's the time. And if that was my worry, Tim, that's what I would do. I know it may sound salesy or self-serving, but that's not my intent. I would be lying and not genuine if I didn't say that, but do something, right? Take massive action, guys, because you just don't want to be on that other end. As Chris mentioned, that he was served his papers on that day. I wasn't going to say anybody's name, but since you did, we'll get there. Just take massive action, guys. This is the key. This is your call out. You're here for a reason. You're listening to this for a reason. If not now, when? If not now, when? All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. But as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. You see, there are two types of men that listen to a podcast like this. Those that go on from one podcast or show to another, just hoping things are going to change and realizing that they're going to be in the same place month after month, year after year. You see, I was this guy, so I completely get it. You may just not be ready. But there's also a second man that listens to a show just like this. And this is a guy who takes massive action so they can shorten the learning curve, compress time, and get results to be the wolf. See, wolf is an acronym for wise, open, loving, and fierce. Now, ask yourself, which one am I? And just be honest with yourself there. And there's no judgment on my end, but if you're ready to move from deactivated deer mode, which is defend, excuse, explain, react, to activated wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, then go over to thepowerfulman.com/grow and go there now. In fact, I'll make it super easy for you. I will even put the link right in the description here so you can just click it and go over there now to learn more. Guys, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go from deactivated to activated because like I said, life is too short for average. And I'll see you on the next episode.